Welcome back. What is the image that comes to your mind when you think of the word faith? For me, it is mountains. Why? Because they say faith can move mountains. So what is faith? Is it a bunch of prayers that we rattle off in order to get what we want? Is it a visit to a religious place so that we can appease God? Or is it trust in God to whom we submit ourselves? Faith, just like the other virtues that we've discussed, has both a natural and a supernatural dimension. In the natural realm, faith may be said to be trust in God, whom we're sort of certain about and whom we hope will answer our prayers. Take the case of a third grader who's preparing for her tests. She prays and hopes that the questions will be easy so that she can ace the test. Such a child may be said to have trust in God, although she's not entirely certain about Him and may not have a great deal of knowledge about Him. This is faith in the natural realm. So what is faith in the supernatural dimension? Faith is a gift of God that is infused into man. And it is on account of this gift that we're able to believe in God, believe in what He says and what He has revealed to us. Thus, faith is a response to the revelation of God. And such a faith that submits to God is both rational and free. Thus, when we say that we believe in God, it means that our intellect gives assent to the truths revealed by God. This is why faith involves knowledge that can be acquired through reason, because faith is an act of the intellect. And this is also why faith and reason can never contradict each other, although faith is always above reason. Let's take a very concrete example. The human person is composed of both body and soul. The body is the material element, while the soul, which consists of the intellect and the will, is the immaterial element. This is why man is said to be a rational being. This is what differentiates man from animals, because he can think, deliberate, choose freely, and has the power of introspection. Unlike animals who are driven purely by instinct. So such a truth about man, which is revealed by God, is affirmed by reason. That said, there are several aspects of reality which we cannot penetrate without faith. For instance, reason knows nothing about the purposes of God and can tell us very little about our ultimate end and happiness. This is where faith helps us to leap over the barriers to truth. This is faith as a gift of God. What about faith as an acquired virtue? Just as in the case of the other virtues, we grow in the habit of virtue through repeated acts. So we grow in the virtue of faith through repetitive acts of faith. This is why faith seeks understanding. Just as we come to trust a person by knowing him, so also in the case of God, the more we know Him, the better we can trust Him. Let's take the case of a woman who's beset by problems and misfortunes in her life. But all along, she keeps exercising faith through repeated acts of faith. And in the process, she also grows in the knowledge of God. And suddenly, one fine day, she loses her son tragically in an accident. On account of the fact that she has grown in her knowledge of God and through repetitive acts of faith, she's able to accept the tragedy. She's able to accept the loss of her son. This is on account of the fact that she knows that God, who's all-powerful, all-knowing, and ever-present in creation, has permitted such a loss. Hence, she's not just able to accept this tragedy, but she's able to continue to trust in God. So this is faith as an acquired virtue. So what we've discussed thus far is faith as a natural virtue and faith in the supernatural dimension, both as a gift and as an acquired virtue. So what is the natural outcome of faith? Is there a natural outcome? Yes, there is. Faith is always manifested through deeds of love or charity. What are these deeds of love? They are actions by which we come to the aid of our neighbor in their physical and or in their spiritual necessities. Physical needs could be poverty, hunger, sickness, or any kind of material deprivation. Spiritual necessities could mean any suffering that our neighbor goes through, on account of which we're able to comfort and console the other. Material deprivation, physical and psychological illness are all a manifestation of human misery, and this ought to elicit our compassion. If we say that we have faith, but we are not able to help those who suffer, who need our help, such a faith is an empty faith. In other words, it is dead. How about a scenario when we cannot perform these deeds of love or charity? And here I'd like to bring up John Milton, the well-known English poet who lived in the 17th century. It is said that he lost his sight in his early 40s. And it is then that he composed his sonnet, "When I consider how my light is spent." It is said to be an allusion to his loss of vision or blindness. And here I'd like to quote from the sonnet. Milton says, "Doth God exact day labor, light denied, I fondly ask." He goes on, "God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. They also serve who stand and wait." At the outset, Milton seems to be lamenting his loss of vision. Barely halfway through his life, at the peak of his career, he seems to be questioning God as to how he can complete the work that God has given him the talent to do and expects him to complete. But towards the end of the sonnet, Milton comes to the realization that there are many who serve God in an active way, through service or help provided to their neighbor. But patience teaches Milton to be still and to serve God by just being. Patience, etymologically, in the Latin, is related to suffering. Thus, it dawns on Milton that perhaps the greatest way, the most perfect way to serve God is by acceptance of one's own suffering. But to be still requires going through a process of maturation and reorientation, because we're made to believe that work, productivity, and success are the yardsticks of human accomplishment. Milton encourages us to think and understand that that is not always the case. So I hope this video helped you to understand faith both from a natural and a supernatural dimension. That faith is trust in God. That faith is a gift of God and grows through repetitive acts of faith. That faith has a natural outcome in that we're able to come to the aid of our neighbor. We're able to help those who suffer in their bodily and or spiritual necessities. Sometimes God also calls people to a higher degree of faith when He permits suffering. And such people accept that suffering joyfully. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please do subscribe to this channel and share. Thank you.